We're going to take just a moment now to be still. There is a need for preparation in all things. And if we're seriously engaged in an exploration into the truth within ourselves, then first, as we're told symbolically, there must be a bowing of the knees, or a sense of humility, or letting go, or receptivity. And so we take a moment to turn away from the conditions and experiences of the world out there, and to let go our concerns and anxieties and frustrations and fears, and to acknowledge the divine process within us in humility, in love, in receptivity, in the willingness to let it flow forth into our lives. And so in just one moment of wordless prayer, let us each in our own way invite this presence, this process, this flow of information and inspiration to come into us, to enrich our mind, and to enlighten our way. And we give thanks for this. Amen. All right, now let's think some more about the Ten Commandments. Just by way of a brief review, we have stated that the Ten Commandments have become something of a grand cliche, a cover for the determination that one often makes that he is quite religious, but that he doesn't really need the religious experience. He lives by the Ten Commandments, so he doesn't need to go to church and all these things. Oh, well, all I do is live by the Ten Commandments, everything is all right. It's a great cliche. The average person who talks about the Ten Commandments, that we ought to teach the children Ten Commandments, and the Ten Commandments are the thing that is needed in our corrupt society, the average person couldn't even probably recite 2 or 3 of them, if that, and couldn't even tell where they could be found in the Bible. I've rarely found a person who could go to a Bible and pick out the Ten Commandments, because they're not that easily found, as we have said. So we're saying that it's not enough to live by the Ten Commandments. It's not enough to keep the Ten Commandments. We've kept them too long and too well, and we've kept them all wrapped up in nice little beribboned packages. It's time to break them down, and to break them down into their fundamental spiritual premises and bases, which are absolutely vital toward what we call the integrative life, toward experience a kind of wholeness. In other words, we have been given the inference so often, and the teaching in much of our religious background, that the important thing in the religious experience is to improve conduct and to change character. I say that's not enough, that we need also to alter consciousness. And unless we change consciousness, unless we open the vertical processes of the individual, he may live a good ethical life, he may be morally upstanding, but yet he still may have a frustration of his own inner flow, which may eventuate in harmony in his life and sickness in his body and confusion in his affairs. And he may wonder why. He may say, how could God treat me like this when I'm such a good Christian or a good Jew or a good religious person or whatever? So the Ten Commandments, as certainly is true of all of the Bible, if we really get to the underlying spiritual essence, deals with principle. Not simply the caprice, not simply a set of guidelines that have been set down by someone arbitrarily, but they deal with fundamental principle. And unless we understand this, we miss the whole idea. And principle, you see, is not coercive but supportive. So essentially, though the Ten Commandments are couched in thou shalt not terms, we must see that this was because Moses was dealing with unsophisticated spiritual children. who couldn't understand the deep insights that he was expressing, in the same way as when you teach your children not to cross the street and not to touch the stove and so forth. At first you just simply say, don't do it because I say so. But in time, as the child grows, he must put away the don'ts and come to understand the whys. Otherwise, he lives a restricted life. He's not set free. Law sets you free, you see, when you understand the basic idea involved. The word command comes from the intensive form of the word commandare, which basically means to entrust to. And there's a process of growth involved. And as we've said, divine law is supportive, not restrictive. And so the commandments actually are fundamental spiritual principles which Moses, and through him the Bible, has commended to us for our own experience, to which we must make a commitment. And unless we make the commitment, it all goes for naught. And so that's the essence that we're dealing with as we go along. We've used the ideas of CCC, the three C's: the commandments, the commendments, and the commitment. Now, just very briefly, the first commandment, as you probably remember, is thou shalt have no other gods before me. This is the starting point. This is the beginning. This is the foundation. This is the Jewish Shema, Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one. The basic unity on which all things are built. Now, this is a thing that we find as an ever-recurring concept throughout all of our consideration of the commandments and throughout all the Bible and throughout all of our study of truth. If we can get this idea of oneness in our consciousness, then all the rest is mere commentary on it. This is where it begins and it ends, the Alpha and the Omega. The one God, one mind, one life, one spirit, one universe, one, totally one, everything in the one. Everything comes out of the one, but is resolvable back into the one. Spirit is all there is, and all that is spirit, and therefore I am included in that all, so I am spirit. And therefore I am a part of it. I am created in the image likeness of spirit, and there can be nothing in my life that is not spirit except that which I think it is. And if I think it's something else, then obviously it takes that kind of form for me. So this is the fundamental of the first commandment. The second commandment, as we remember, deals with the idea of thou shalt make no graven images. Anytime we look to a man or a person or lean on anyone or thing as trying as the means of power, then we frustrate our own inner flow, which is the real sin, the frustration of this flow. And it leads to what we referred to last week as idolatry, putting things before God. Now, we've placed a great deal of emphasis upon the idea of the integrated life. The whole purpose of our quest for understanding in life is to find wholeness, to find this sense of integration. The word religion, from the Latin religio, means to bind together, to create that integration. That's what religion is all about. Undoubtedly, this is not always experienced simply because we get all bogged down in theologies and intellectualization, whether it be in a fundamentalist theology or even in our metaphysical studies. We can fail in the process of integration if we get all hung up on words. But the basic need, the basic quest is for wholeness, a sense of oneness, the realization of oneness. Now, it's rather interesting that in the Indo-European languages, the root meaning of two almost always connotes badness. I don't know if you thought about this, but you might give some thought to it, especially as I give you a clue in terms of some of the words, and you'll think of a lot of other ones. For instance, the Greek prefix dis, dys, as in dyspepsia, and the Latin dis, as in dis, as in dishonorable, are both derived from duo, and they both give the thought of badness or limitation to the word itself by that prefix. The related bis in the French gives a pejorative or depreciative sense to such French words as baveux, literally means to sight. Actually, the word means blunder. We see that in so many other words. For instance, the word dubious and the word doubt and the related German word Zweifel come from the sense of the double-minded approach, seeing twice, seeing double. In modern slang, we have the word two-faced and two-timers and so forth. So that in our language, there is a tendency to confirm the belief that the mystics have had throughout all the ages, that division is the essential badness, that sin is separation, that evil is whatever it is that frustrates the inner relationship with the outer experience. And incidentally, another word, division, is an evidence of this same duality, this same two. And you could go on and on and on. There's so many words that indicate that as one ancient put it, behold but one in all things, it is the second that leads you astray. It is the duality always that leads you astray. Well, so therefore we keep this as a sort of a background ideal that we're going to consider all things against. So today let's think about the third commandment. You shall not take the name of the Lord your God in vain, for the Lord will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Now the word vain simply means empty or lying or evil, false, manipulation, perversion. There are many, many connotations, and you take your choice. But in any case, it seems to imply that to take the name of the Lord in vain is to direct that, quote, name of the Lord into false and perverted ways. But the important phrase here is this name of the Lord, and this is something that's been very confusing and has been the source of an awful lot of studies. Now the simplest explanation of the commandment, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain, one that has usually been given as a glossing over of the meaning in religion, is that you're not supposed to utter blasphemy. In other words, if somebody says, God damn you, he has taken the name of the Lord in vain. Well, I'm not for swearing and cursing at all. I'm always very uncomfortable around it, and I can't understand why we use some words we do, not because there's anything immoral about them, but I think it's just plain bad communication. But there's one thing I want to impress upon you, and I hope you'll catch this implication tonight, that there are far worse things in terms of taking the name of the Lord in vain than such a thing as God damn. Far worse in very subtle ways and in the manner of speech that we're involved in constantly. So let's kind of think about that. Now, about the name of the Lord. There's long been a search by scholars and theologians for a so-called lost word of power, a secret phrase, a secret name of the infinite. And there have been some exhaustive studies and a lot of pedantic works that have come out in the quest for this lost word of power. It's referred to actually in the book of Deuteronomy, but here it tends to clear something up which I guess some folks have allowed to get uncleared because of their intellectual quest. It says, and it's talking about this word of the Lord, it says, the word is very nigh unto thee, in thy mouth and in thy heart, that thou mayest do it. Now when we talk about the name of the Lord, the name in the Scriptures almost invariably refers to nature. And you'll find that names are quite often quickly changed into another name when a nature or a tendency or a consciousness is changed. You see this in many of the characters of the Bible. So name basically refers to nature, so that the name of God is a concise statement of the divine nature. And what is it? What is this concise statement of the divine nature? Is it a definition? Is it some magic phrase, abracadabra? Actually, the lost word of power is lost only because of our ignorance of being. We're lost. The Word isn't lost. We have lost our way in consciousness, like the prodigal son out in the far country. So that this so-called lost word of power, or the secret name of the Lord, is really nothing else but the familiar expression that we use so many times a day, I am. I am that I am. This was the name that was given to Moses. And, as Deuteronomy says, this word is very nigh in thy mouth. The simple statement of being, which in a universal sense implies to God, and in an individual and personal sense it applies to man. I am. Now we can see what was involved in that very confused statement of Jesus that we talked a little bit about last week. Except ye believe that I am, ye shall die in your sins. Remember, I mentioned that, and some of you probably looked it up, in your Bible it probably says, except you believe that I am He, and the He is italicized, and there's a marginal note that says that this was added for clarity, actually giving the great confusion to the whole Christian teaching. But the statement says, except ye believe that I am, except you believe this name of the Lord, the I am, ye shall die in your sins. Because if you're not aware of that and do not get into the conscious use of that I am, rightly directed in your life, then because of anything that is cut off from its source, there is deterioration, and you die in your sins, the sin being the separation. So that the Lord, as the commandment says, will not hold him guiltless who takes his name in vain. Now this is not a supreme being sitting on a throne somewhere saying, look, you better not play around with my name or else, you see, because these fundamentals are not coercive, they're not dictatorial edicts from some being on high, they are statements of the inexorability of divine law. In other words, this deals with I am power. The word I am is very nigh unto thee that thou mayest do it, we're told. It's a power to be used. Emerson says there is one condition coupled with the gift of truth, and it is its use. And so this gift of the I am must be used, you see. And we're going to use it. We're doing all the time, but the point is, how do we use it? And the commandment deals with the misuse. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. In John, the first chapter, there is that series of statements which have been the object of a great deal of study. Remember, it says, in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was God. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. The same was in the beginning, and so forth, and it goes on and on. It's rather interesting that a fundamentalist approach to the Bible has accepted the idea that Jesus was the Word, so this was talking about Jesus, so Jesus was in the beginning, and Jesus was with God, and Jesus was God. It's so easy to get off the track in the spiritual logic of the Scriptures. But actually, this Word that was in the beginning was the I am. Before Abraham was, I am, Jesus said. The I am. He wasn't saying that I lived before Abraham was. He was saying long before man set foot upon this planet, this I am was the basic root, the power, the name of the Lord. And anyone who ever expressed or experienced or manifest power did so because of this I am process, the creative logos. And so it says, but to all who receive him, this is following along in the first chapter of John, but to all who receive him, who believe in his name, he gave the power to become children of God. But again, unfortunately, the Christian fundamentalist interpretation has been to receive him, Jesus, and to believe on the name of Jesus, and Jesus gives you the power to become children of God. You see, now this is totally missing the basic thread of this spiritual power that runs through the Bible. Now, obviously, there will be those that will debate this, and certainly the fundamentalist preacher would be screaming to high heaven if he heard me say it. But the point is, in the beginning was the Word, the I am, the creative logos. And all who receive him receive this name or nature of the Lord, the I am process, and believe on this nature, this I am process, will then begin to experience the flow of creativity and prosperity and well-being and all the wonderful things which Jesus said will be added on to us. In other words, we are given the right to manifest the fullness of our spiritual nature, to become children of God. In other words, the I am turns on the power. It's as someone says, within every person is the unborn possibility of limitless power, and ours is the privilege of giving birth to it. Always. You have within you what could be called grow power, which is released through the right and wise use of the I am. In other words, no matter where you are, no matter what you may be, no matter how much you have lost or how little you think you have gained, no matter how far you may think yourself to be from the heights you've set for yourself or that you think God has set for you, the power to become is your divine inheritance. And you always have the privilege and the responsibility to claim it, to accept it. In other words, the activity of God in this divine logos within you is always saying, grow and go. And yes is the answer to every prayer. Every prayer. If there's any no, it's in our own consciousness. God always says yes. Remember, Jesus once asked Peter, who do you say that I am? And Peter said in those words that have been almost deified, thou art the Christ, the Son of the living God. But you see, Peter was not naming Jesus. He was affirming the divine level of man which Jesus was fulfilling, the I am self. Life is forever asking the question of every one of us, who are you? Who do you say I am? And your answer to this will be your whole general attitude toward life. I'm weak, I'm tired, or I am the Christ, the Son of the living God. In other words, that's the I am process in me. That's the basis of my whole life. The Bible, in many, many instances, uses the phrase, call on the name of the Lord. If you're a Bible student, you can get out your concordance and see how many times that statement is used. Call on the name of the Lord. But it doesn't mean to supplicate God. The name of the Lord is the divine logos, the I am. So to call on the name of the Lord is to call forth the I am process. The Psalm says our help is in the name of the Lord. Our help is in that I am, that creative logos. Jesus was the example of the I am in full expression in man. Now, if Jesus is the great example, then it must be the example of that which each of us has it in him to become, and not certainly something entirely foreign to our nature. Now that's an important point. He is the example of the full expression of the I am, and that's an example of that which we can give expression to. And that's so fundamental in Jesus' teaching. All these things that I do, you can do too. Now we've corrupted this into the religious phrase, in his name. In his name. You see, which actually means what Jesus himself says, whatsoever things you ask in my name, that give I unto you. And the in my name refers to in that nature of the creative logos which I have fully expressed in my life. And if you express it, then you can do it too. So when you ask it in my name, you ask it in the name of this I am process. You call on the name of the Lord, and you start the automatic flow into expression. Now there's a statement in Isaiah, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with, if only because you hear it sung in various ways every Christmas time. For unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government shall be upon his shoulders, and his name shall be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. And because Bible scholars have so often started with a premise and then read it back into something in the Scriptures, starting with the premise that Jesus was God, then you read back into this, this is a prophecy of the coming of Jesus. But it's not at all. It's actually a statement of being and of the I am expression in being. For unto us a child is born, unto you Unto every one of us a child is born, the child of this divine possibility and consciousness. And the government shall be upon his shoulder, the government of our life. The responsibility to do the things that need to be done is on that inner potentiality that is unfolding. And the degree that we unfold it, do we become great and successful in life. And his name shall be called Wonderful. That means you must call yourself by the name of the Lord. Call yourself wonderful. I am wonderful. I am wonderful, you see, and so forth. I am mighty God. I am everlasting Father. I am Prince of Peace. Now this obviously is very absolute and thereby sometimes seems somewhat irrelevant to human experience. But it's important that we get this fundamental so that we can understand what is involved in this idea of taking the name of the Lord in vain. To call upon the name of the Lord, call upon the I am, and to utilize and give expression in a wise and righteous and positive way this I am process. So instead of this being a revelation of the coming of Jesus, it actually is a self-revelation of the divine level of you, of the Christ of you, the revelation of hidden capacities beyond your fondest dreams. That's the thing that's implicit, you see, in this whole biblical teaching. Now, the name of the Lord in the Old Testament is often referred to as Jehovah or Yahweh, or in the Hebrew, Yeva. And the Hebrew Yeva is composed of 4 letters, Yod, He, Vav, He. Now, some of you are Hebrew scholars. I'm not, so you correct me if my pronunciation is wrong. But we want basically to get the idea. Now, it's said that the whole Hebrew alphabet is invested with a symbolic character. In other words, the Yod is a minute mark of a definite shape, and the whole alphabet shows that the other letters are combinations of this initial form. In other words, it's the generating point. So Yod then becomes the symbol of first principle. And it's only a step from Yod to God, you see. You begin to see where we got the name in the first place. Now, think of this Yod, and this is simply a letter in the Hebrew alphabet, but it's the fundamental focal point on which the whole alphabet has grown. And if you take this Yod and think of it symbolically as that which you experience or feel when you pronounce it on the in-breathing process. By that I mean Yod, Yod. Inhale while you say it. Try that to yourself. Yod, Yod. Now, we're simply dealing with a symbolical thing, but it's important to kind of get this relationship, because I think it helps us to understand a lot of things about prayer. All through the Scriptures, there is a term used in relationship to God or the name of the Lord, or Yahweh, Jehovah, whatever, and it is spirit. There is a spirit in man. And the breath of the Almighty giveth him understanding. Mystical teachers of East and West have long related the idea of the breath to the flow of spirit. Now, I think this can be overdone. I think we can make a fetish of it. But I think it's good to see this, because if we get this basic idea of the Yod, or God, the eternal fundamental principle, the first cause, on the in-breath, as it were, Yod, and then on the exhaling, say or affirm, I am. Or if you don't want to say the Yod, you can say God, or you can say God is. I have used this for a long time. Breathing in, God is. I am. God is. I am. In other words, this gets you in the rhythm. Now, this establishes the fundamental premise on which prayer is built, scientific prayer. But if we once catch this idea, we will never again be comfortable with the prayer that reaches up or out, you see. Because what this is saying, as Emerson puts it in his words, man is an inlet and may become an outlet to all there is in God. The inlet experienced by the in-breathing, and the outlet when you exhale. And Prayer then, you see, so often, as we all are well aware, and as we analyze our own consciousness, we know that many of us pray in this way unconsciously, even if not by design. Prayer has been so often to God about things, and it's all out here. We pray to God, and we pray about this or whatever, but we're praying to God, you see. And, strangely enough, if we see this whole spiritual logic involved here, to pray out to God, or up to God, or to supplicate God, or plead with God, is to take the name of the Lord in vain. Because it becomes a vain attempt to coerce God, or to influence God, or to plead with God, to get something into our lives from the outside. And all the while, as Deuteronomy says, the word is very nigh unto us that thou mayest do it. The word being the divine logos, the creative process within ourselves. This is why I say, and I've said it for a long time, and we'll say it in this context, that the important thing is not to pray to God, but to pray from the consciousness of God. And to do that, or to symbolically get the feeling, instead of praying out, first of all, on the inhalation, to get the consciousness of this inner flow, to know that it's not something you reach for or reach out to, but something you let happen. So get the idea of the inflow, the in-breath, to get the consciousness of God, and then project the consciousness as you exhale. I am a child of God. I am life. I am one with the flow of Spirit. I am successful in all that I do. But now suddenly, you see, you become aware of something that is, to me, the missing link in much of our metaphysical study, and that is that we've placed a great deal of emphasis upon words, upon affirmations, upon treatments, on autosuggestion, on self-images, and all these things, but much of it is a kind of a manipulation. Take this word and speak it, and things are going to happen, but we lose the link-up. And the link-up is, the word is very nigh unto thee. In other words, it's a spiritual process. It's a divine logos within yourself, which first of all we must begin with. And then when we project the affirmation or the treatment, the I am phrase, whatever it may be, it is coming out of this inner awareness. It is a evolution of the first principle, of the basic idea. So then, as Jesus says, the word is no longer my word, but the word of him who sent me. So it's no longer a matter of, here's an affirmation, use it and it'll make you well. No affirmation is going to make anybody well. Certain ideas and autosuggestive statements may do certain things to your subconscious mind and may cause you to believe in certain things and act in certain ways, but the only way you can be well is to be whole. And the only way you can be whole is to have this divine link-up, to begin with the realization of your oneness. Hear, O Israel, the Lord God is one. Thou shalt have no other gods before me. Not a God of an affirmation or a God of a book or a God of a teacher who can say magic things and do certain things for me, but my own divine link-up, my own awareness of this creative flow within me, you see. So then, if we experience this, work with it, one of the things that has happened to me that I've become aware of, and I say it very humbly, only that it's a thing that I've been experimenting with, that I've found that symbolically, now mind you, you can make a fetish out of this breathing thing, so be very sure now that I'm saying this is a symbolic thing, which you will apply in any way you want. But symbolically, when you're faced with a challenge, whatever it may be, and you believe that through prayer or treatment, certain things can be altered, you believe in the process, that symbolically, when you're faced with this challenge, instead of quick speaking affirmations, the first thing, and sometimes the only thing necessary, and there are times when you have no more time except that to do this, is to just take a quick breath. You can say God, God is, Yod, or just breathe in with the symbolical idea that you're in the flow of the in-breathing process of the Spirit to get yourself in tune. For instance, if you find yourself in a very difficult situation, you're driving a car and suddenly you see a crisis heading toward you, and you may see this in many ways in your life, and you don't have time to say, oh my golly, I want to pray, but how do I do it? Just this feeling of the inflow of the Spirit, you see, symbolically. To get that idea of getting into the Spirit, into the awareness of the fundamental principle, and then if you will, and if you care to, and if you have the time and the inclination, then out of that you can express a word of truth. I'm a child of God, and I know that I'm protected and all things are right for me, you see. But it comes out of this link-up, this inner awareness, this binding together, this conscious integration of the inner flow of the Spirit. And this is so fundamental. And I think this is a very important aspect of this third commandment. It's strange how many of us feel that we can pray and treat and affirm with words of truth in a time of spiritual seeking, and then what we put into words at other times we feel really doesn't count. You know, we may get still and very sincerely and very studiously, we may say, now I know that there's only one presence and one power in my life, and I know that divine order and harmony are established in my life and all things are working for good and so forth. You know, we may have that marvelous realization, and 10 minutes later we look out here and we say, oh gee, look at that, isn't that terrible? Oh, I wonder if this is going to happen, if that's going to happen, and so forth. And if someone were to say, well, what about the distinction between this realization you had over here and these words you're speaking here? Oh, well, you know, after all, that's what I really mean. I'm not, you know, either I'm not serious here or after all, this is being realistic and this is dealing with facts, that's dealing with truth, and we have all sorts of ways in which we rationalize it. Thou shalt not take the name of the Lord in vain. Now remember, when we're dealing with law, we're dealing with that which is inexorable. And this is the way the commandment says it, that thou wilt not hold him guiltless who taketh the name of the Lord in vain. Now that doesn't mean that God is going to punish you for doing this, but when you deal with law, you deal with that which is self-fulfilling. As we mentioned, jumping off the platform, the law immediately takes hold. Now it's not coercive, it's supportive because it holds you in your seat, you see. When you walk by the supportive aspect of gravity. But if you break the law, you don't really, you break yourself on it. If you unwisely do certain things, step off a high platform without watching for the stair, then the Lord will not hold him guiltless who taketh his name in vain. So it is in the expression of the words that go forth out of our mouth. Now this is a thing, you read the Bible and you'll be amazed at how many times you are told to keep a seal on your lips, watch the words, death and life are in the power of the tongue, over and over. There's dozens of statements like this. This is very fundamental. And Jesus said, every idle word that you utter, you will give account for. Every idle word. Not just things that you say emphatically, but every idle word that you utter, you will give account for. He says in the day of judgment, and that's been misunderstood. The judgment simply means the reckoning process of the law. If I fall off the platform, I am judged immediately by the law. Boom, and I hit the floor. There was no one sitting up there in a book and saying, well, it's time for the judgment, and now we're going to mete out the punishment. It's automatic, instantaneous, you see. You're not punished for your sins, you're punished by your sins. That's the law. We punish ourselves through misuse of the law. So there is a law involved in this name of the Lord, which is basically the name of your own divine self. The I Am is the universal name of God, and personally it's the name of your own innate nature. And to take the name of the Lord in vain is to give expression to anything that is negative. And that's hard. That shows we all have a lot of work to do. And it shows that we don't really have to look too far when we're trying to find out why we have a lot of the problems we have, you see. Now, just note how we get into this limited attitude of saying all sorts of things that certainly we don't want to see happen in our lives. Remember, Isaiah says, woe unto them that decree unrighteous decrees. When was the last time you heard someone say, oh, that just kills me, I'll never be the same again? Or you'll say, I'm just sure that everything is happening wrong in my life. Or that drives me crazy. I'll never get over that. I'm going out of my mind over this thing. That burns me up. And you go on. I mean, you could give us dozens of statements like this, and all of them are emphatic expressions coming right out of the creative power within yourself. And we're not aware of it, of course. But simple statements like that are far more blasphemous, if you're going to use the word, in terms of the full meaning of the law, than if you went around telling everybody, God damn you, God damn you. You see? Now that's an important thing. Many people are very uptight about blasphemy in the traditional sense, and yet are just about as negative as a person can be, and in every case taking the name of the Lord in vain. Even as I say, the negative or unwise use of prayer is even taking the name of the Lord in vain. So it's a very touchy thing because we're dealing with law. So it is not good sense to put into words something that you do not really want to see manifest in your life. It's not good sense, it's not economical, it's not logic, it's not wise, it's downright stupid to put into words anything that you do not want to see manifest in your life. And the point is, we delude ourselves in this study of truth unless we get busy and make a commitment to work on this third commandment, and that means to clean up our speech. And I don't mean just to eliminate all the dams and darns and so forth. I mean to get the negatives out. And to realize that as you voice anything on the breath, you're coming out of the basic, fundamental God process. The word is very nigh unto thee that thou mayest do it. Now how are you going to do it? You're going to do it negatively? You're going to say it's terrible, it's awful, the world's going to pot, I'm tired, I'm sick, and so forth. Every time you do that, what you are really doing is you're saying God is tired, God is sick, God is stupid, and so forth. You're taking the name of the Lord in vain, you see. Now, this takes a lot of discipline and an awful lot of commitment. But you see, immediately when we open this door to the inside of the commandment, you got a ball of wax it's pretty hard to get a hold of. So the commandments really deal with tremendous needs in our life, needs to work, to experience unfoldment, to grow, to discipline, to practice. And this is one that we could give an awful lot of time to. In other words, say what you want to say. What you really want to say, what you really want to see happen in your life. Not what you're impetuously led to say by force of habit, or not what you acquiesce in because other people around you are saying all sorts of negative things. You get on the elevator and somebody says, oh, it's a terrible day, isn't it? And then you say, yes, it is, isn't it? You know. So right away you've tuned into this whole stream of negation. This is a time where I believe, and one doesn't have to be stuffy or Pollyanna, or impractical. This is a time when before you answer, or before you express yourself impetuously, get the feeling of, first of all, getting back to the principle, the creative logos, the I am, the one. And you can do this symbolically by just a quick drawing of the breath. The reminder that you're in tune with the divine flow. Now how are you going to use it? Tremendous power to change the world. How are you going to use it? You know, are you going to say, yes, it's lousy, isn't it? Or are you going to find a direction, a guidance, an inspiration by which you can let something good be said? You can always say something good about anything, without being Pollyanna. You know, the person says, isn't this a terrible day? Oh, do you think so? I think it's a beautiful day. I mean, I love the clear blue sky, and the brisk of fall is marvelous, and so forth. There's always something good you can say to redirect your consciousness toward a relationship with this inner flow. Now, it takes effort, and we won't make it every time. You know, as they say, you can't win them all. And you'll find many times when you'll fall flat on your face. We all do this because speaking is something we do almost constantly. And we're always putting our foot in our mouth, much more than we know. But this is what is involved in this commandment. And it's one of the most difficult of all of them, because it's something we're dealing with all the time, not just occasionally when you get to thou shalt not steal and thou shalt not kill and a lot of others. These are things maybe occasionally you have to deal with. This one you're dealing with all the time. All the time. Speak the name of the Lord. Say what you want to be true. Get back to the principle, the realization of oneness. Let something good be said. Always, always, let something good be said. I use the words LSGBS just as a little reminder. LSGBS, let something good be said, no matter what it is. Not just to be Pollyanna, not just to be nicey nice, but to remind yourself that your whole being emanates out of this divine creative process. And you have in your power, this power that is nigh unto you in your mouth and your heart, that you must do it. This power is the power by which you can change your life. You can begin to awaken dead centers in your body. You can open up new vistas of accomplishment. You can bring into your experience new relationships, new love, whatever it is. You can begin right here on the power of your speech, on the way in which you direct and rightly use. So give some thought to this idea. First of all, of the idea of the inhalation. Just to get centered, get the feeling of getting to the root. Yod, God is, I am. And this really is a beautiful exercise in prayer. Forget for a while that you have things to pray about. Forget that you have problems, you have difficulties, you have people that are bugging you and so forth. Take a few moments to just be still, and if you want to do it with the breathing, because this has some interrelationship with some of the yoga teachings, though as I say, sometimes you can make a fetish out of the thing and lose the real thread of what you're trying to do. But take a few moments to be still, get very relaxed, and put out of your mind everything that you're concerned about, and just go through maybe 5 minutes of just breathing in and out, saying, God is, I am. God is, I am. Just do that for a while, and you may be amazed. You may be amazed. You'll find yourself feeling light all over. You'll find a new sense of a power, and then, if you will, then you can begin to direct the I am into specific areas. I am free with the freedom of spirit. I am an expression of love. I am life in action. I am successful in all that I do. I am, I am, I am. But it's not just words that you're saying up here. It's coming out of this inner awareness of the divine Logos in you, which is the infinite process expressing as you. There's a word that we use a great deal in our time. It's been overworked because it's almost always pointing the finger at somebody else, and the word is permissiveness. Anytime you've heard the word permissive, somebody has always pointed the finger at somebody else. They're talking about parents who are too easy on their children. They're talking about the permissive young people and so forth who are undisciplined and so forth. But there's no kind of permissiveness that is any worse or as worse as the permissive verbal use of the power of mind. Permissiveness in speech. Far more dangerous than the permissiveness of young people. Because of this grow power potential within a person, a child may turn out good anyway, even though he's had a whole permissive background. He may eventually wake up and come to light, as an awful lot of people do, and get a discipline because of their own inner power. But verbal permissiveness is like playing Russian roulette. And as the commandment says, thou shalt not hold him guiltless who taketh the name in vain. In other words, there is an inexorable action or reaction of the law. And that's something to think about. You may recall the story, I've told it before, of a tourist who was traveling in New England. He spent the night, and the next morning he thought he'd go down and get some of the local culture, and so he went into the general store, and a bunch of the old codgers were sitting around chewing tobacco. So he sat down beside them, and he tried to strike up a conversation. He talked about it's a nice day, it's good country up here, it's beautiful, isn't it, and so forth, and nobody said a thing. Finally he said, is there any law against talking in this town? And one of the men looked at him for a long time before he said anything, and he said, no law against it. But he said, there's an understanding here that no one's to speak unless he can improve upon the silence. And that's something to think about, isn't it? Something to think about. Anyway, this is the third commandment. And what it really says, as all the commandments do, is not a restrictive commandment that says you can't do this, you won't be allowed to do that, and so I'm not going to let you. But what it really says is there's no possible way in which you can take the name of the Lord in vain. You just can't do it, because you're dealing with inexorable law. And you will always have a comeback. You'll always have a reaction. So we're talking about law which is constantly working. And it's put in the terms of thou shalt not, because as all the commandments, Moses was dealing with spiritual children who were not able to understand. And at that time they had to say, don't do this, don't do that. But we must break down that aspect and get to the underlying supportive process of the law. Because on the one side, it's like a two-edged sword, you see. On the one side, this misuse of the name of the Lord can bring all sorts of negation in your life. On the other side, the right and wise use of the name of the Lord, the I Am, is the focus of tremendous power. And that's what we're about in our study of truth, isn't it? All right, so much for that. Now let's take a few moments now to get into an experience in the flow which we call giving. This is very important because if you think about this spiritual process in man, it's a flowing process. And it's constantly flowing, changelessly so. So we like to symbolize this in an act of faith and in a very important symbolic gesture through giving. And we give certainly out of a desire to share, out of a desire to support. But basically we give because there is that in us which inexorably seeks to express. So giving is not so much an act of will that says, I'm going to give this, but it's a giving in or a giving way to the divine process. So we like to link it with the idea of the flow of love. And so we affirm together, and we want you to hold this thought as you hold your gift in your hand. Divine love flowing through me blesses and increases all that I give and all that I receive. Do we know that together? Divine love flowing through me blesses and increases all that I give and all that I receive. Before we go on our way, I want us to take just one moment now to get back to the beginning, to the root, to the one. So quickly we get out into the area that distracts us. And the word distract, you see, again, is the duo, meaning division, separation. We so easily get involved in circumstances that turn us away from the awareness of who we are and what we are. So let's just make a commitment now that we will remember the name of the Lord, and that we will not take this name or nature in vain. We will not distort this I am process. We commit ourselves to keep a watch on our lips, to speak words that are positive and constructive, to say only those things that we really want to see happen in our lives. And occasionally, before speaking or before reacting, take a deep breath and get the feeling of breathing in the inspiration of the Almighty, getting into the consciousness of the flow of God. And then out of this, let the word which Deuteronomy says is very nigh unto our lips and in our heart that we may do it, flow forth as we couple to this dynamic name of the Lord, the I Am, all those things which we desire to see unfold or manifest in our lives. We commit ourselves to this, to work with it, to practice it. And we give thanks. Amen.